Welcome back to True Ghost Vault. Tonight we descend once again into the Appalachian fog, where the lakes are too quiet, the cabins too still, and the ground beneath your feet may not be empty. These are 3 true horror stories from the forgotten corners of the wilderness. A counselor who vanished before his first shift, a camp built over graves no one dared to move, and a voice whispering your name from under the bed long after everyone else has gone. So stay quiet, keep the flashlight close, and whatever you hear, don't answer when it says your name. Story 1. The camp counselor who never came back. They warned us not to go back there, whispered tales of missing campers, abrupt disappearances, but you know how camp legends grow. Kids daring each other over bonfires, branches crackling like hidden watchers. I came to Camp Greenwood looking for a summer job, thinking I'd find purpose among the trees, escaping the emptiness that shadowed my last college year. He was just another counselor, at first bright-eyed, relentlessly cheerful. Perfect for camp life. Then, one morning, he didn't come back. Some say he wandered off during a nighttime hike. Some say the lake swallowed him. Others say he never existed, like someone cut him out of every record. I was there. I remember his last night. I heard him or someone speaking his name in the dark. Tonight, I'm going to tell you what really happened at Camp Greenwood. Every warning sign you ignored, every step into the woods that shouldn't have been taken. And why, even now, the forest seems to call his name and mine, because some ghosts don't die, they just wait. It started innocently enough. I arrived the week before summer kicked off. Camp Greenwood sat in a low green valley surrounded by pines so thick dusk came early. The cabins looked like wooden relics. Moss grew on shingles. Steps sagged. But underneath, the energy buzzed first-time campers, chatter, counselors, prepping crafts and canoe lists. On my first orientation night, we gathered around the fire pit. The red embers glowed like tiny suns. We were 10 counselors and 2 supervisors seated in a semicircle, eyes flickering with nerves excitement. The head supervisor, a woman named Victoria, welcomed us. Her voice was warm but firm. She handed out walkie-talkies and maps. She reminded us boundaries matter. Stay on marked trails. Do not wander beyond mile marker 7, the old logging path. Then she paused, eyes drifting beyond the flames. And remember, she said in a lower tone, Camp Greenwood has had incidents. Lost campers. A counselor gone last summer. Disappeared overnight. A sigh passed around us, some nervous laughs. We found his pack, his watch, 1 boot, nothing else. She pulled out a photo, a quiet, intense face. Eyes hopeful. That guy was Jordan Hale, she said. Great with kids, hardworking. But one morning, gone. What struck me was how matter-of-fact she said it, like talking about a pattern of lakefish escaping nets. She covered the photo, stood. It's why boundaries exist, she said. But people wander, people lose their way. I stared at the shadows beyond the firelight. Trees leaned in dark and silent. Counselors chatted late into the night. We joked, shared stories, our resilient optimism masking unease. But some campers whispered about Jordan, about hearing footsteps near the lake at night, seeing someone walking toward the mist. That night, I slept in cabin 3, just me and 2 other counselors, Jess and Marco. The cabin smelled of stale pine and waxed floors. I lay awake hearing the lake's distant voice wind through vents. At 2:13 a.m., I woke to scrambling feet across wooden porch, soft, but too quick to be a squirrel. In the darkness, I thought I saw someone slip between cabins. Then, silence. Later, someone called my name. soft sad. At first, I thought it was Marco or Jess, but I heard it again. Daniel. A voice that bit like cold water. I sprang up. The door stood closed. Jess grumbled and flipped a light, her face calm, but eyes wary. "Dream," she said. I nodded, lying back down, but I couldn't shake it. Something in those woods was stirring. And Jordan, did he call to me? Opening in darkness, with walkie static and distant campfire laughter. Jess goes missing after midnight walk. Daniels discovers her half hidden in woods, silent staring. No record of Jess on any roster. Photos altered. Supervisors claim she's probably off campus, but walkie indicates she never spoke again. Daniel retraces her steps, finds makeshift stone can, a carved symbol on tree, looks old. Flash of a figure in mist, someone wearing counselor t-shirt, but flickering, translucent. Ends with Daniel hearing footsteps beyond boundaries, walking away. He's determined to find out more. The next few days passed like a dream I couldn't fully wake from. Campers arrived by the busload, screaming, laughing, dragging duffel bags over gravel. We taught craft-supervised swims, cracked jokes by the fire. On the surface, everything was normal. Smiles, sunscreen, bug spray. But I watched the forest more than the kids. At night, I listened. It was always quiet, too quiet for a forest full of animals. Except that night. Jess had volunteered for late night watch. She was walking the lake trail alone, checking lanterns. She never came back. When morning came, her bunk was untouched. Her walkie left in the charger, her sneakers still by the door. I told Victoria immediately. She frowned, sharp lines forming near her eyes. She probably went into town, she said. Counselors do that sometimes. I blinked. Without shoes, without a walkie. She didn't answer. That evening, something else was off. The camp's photo board, the one with our names and pictures, was missing Jess. Her photo was gone. Her nameplate removed. Even the kids didn't seem to remember her. One camper stared at me when I mentioned her. "Who's Jess?" he asked. "There's no Jess here." My stomach turned cold. I knew what I saw. I knew who I'd shared cabin 3 with. I searched anyway. After lights out, I took my flashlight and left the main grounds. I retraced Jess's last path along the east trail to the lake under arching pines that hissed in the wind. About a mile in, I found something. A stack of stones, a crude can, fresh. At the base of a tree, carved into bark, was a symbol, 2 slashes crossing an open eye. It was jagged, deeply etched old, but someone had traced over it recently with red chalk or paint. I heard water, not the lake. It was a trickle, hidden behind bramble. I pushed through and found a narrow ravine no wider than a body lined with ferns. Something about it made my head throb. I turned away. That's when I saw him. A figure 20 feet away, standing still at the edge of the lake, dressed like a counselor, khaki shorts, forest green t-shirt. But there was something wrong. He wasn't solid. His edges blurred like heat off pavement. His body barely moved, but his head turned slowly toward me. And though I couldn't see his face, I knew. It was Jordan. He lifted his arm, not waving, pointing, back toward camp. I blinked, and he was gone. I sprinted back, breath sharp in my throat, heart hammering. Inside cabin 3, Marco was sitting on the edge of his bed, pale. "I heard her," he said. "Who?" He didn't blink. "Jess." She was crying, under the floor. That night I didn't sleep. I kept hearing footsteps, then stopping just outside the cabin. When I opened the door, there was no one there. But on the steps, a single boot, old, mud-caked, laces curled like something had pulled them loose. Inside the tongue, faintly inked, J.H. Jordan Hale. It was day 10. 10 days since Jess disappeared, since Jordan appeared to me at the lake, since the whispers began. I didn't tell the other counselors. I watched them day after day acting like nothing was wrong, like nothing had changed, but something had. I could feel it, the campers too, especially the youngest boy in cabin 4. His name was Eli. He was quiet, withdrawn, refused to join group hikes, kept drawing strange shapes in the dirt behind the mess hall. When I asked what they meant, he looked up at me, his eyes hollow. "He told me what they mean," he said. I crouched. Who? Eli pointed to the lake. "The boy who lives in the water." That night, I couldn't stop thinking about what he said. I stayed up late watching the reflection of the moon ripple across the surface. And then I heard it, splashing, soft, rhythmic. I grabbed my flashlight, stepped to the dock. No wind, no fish. But in the far dark, maybe 20 yards out, something was floating. No someone. A small shape face up. A boy. I froze. Eli, no response. The shape moved closer. I stepped back. The air was thick, smelled like rot and wet soil. And then it sank, without a ripple, as if pulled under by something invisible. I turned to run. Eli was standing at the edge of the dock. He hadn't been there before. His voice was hollow. "He's showing me what happened." I swallowed. Who? Eli didn't answer. He stepped forward and collapsed. I caught him before he hit the wood. His skin was freezing, eyes glassy. I carried him back to the infirmary. He didn't wake until dawn. When he did, he screamed. Blood poured from his nose, his mouth. He tried to say something. I leaned close. One word, wet and broken. Jordan. I broke into the camp records that night. Found the old counselor files, buried in the back cabinet. Jordan Hale. Hired June 14th. Missing June 28th. No incident report. No investigation. No follow-up. And the weirdest part, next to his name, someone had written in red ink, "Reclaimed." I flipped to previous years. 4 other names, all gone, all labeled reclaimed. I stared out the window. The trees were still, but in the shadows, I saw movement, like the forest was breathing, watching, waiting. The next morning, the lake was black, not dark black, as if it had swallowed the sky and buried it beneath the surface. No light reflected, no sound echoed. The campers stood at the shore like statues, silent. I tried to gather them, speak, do something, but none would respond. Not even Eli. They weren't staring at the water. They were listening to it. That night, the fire pit remained unlit. No marshmallows, no songs, no laughter. The counselors huddled inside their cabins, pretending sleep could save them. I sat on the dock, waiting. At 3:07 a.m., the lake moved. It didn't ripple. It rose. From its center, something stepped forward. A shape. First a man, then a child, then both. Its body shifted like smoke under skin. Faces layered like memories, flickering through fog. Every person who had ever disappeared here, Jess, Jordan, Victoria, all of them passed through it. And then it spoke, not with sound, but with presence. This land must feed. This forest must breathe. You come with noise, with light. You wake the deep. You will pay. I stood. I'm not afraid of you, I lied. The thing tilted its head. You should be. It raised its hand. Behind me, the cabins lit with firelight, but no one had struck a match. Screaming started. Too many voices, and then silence. I turned. No fire, no cabins, no people, only trees, dense, immobile. The camp was gone, erased like chalk in rain. I live in the woods now. Or maybe I am the woods. I can't remember how many days it's been. I walk in circles, but always returned to the same place, a clearing with a single boot and a mirror nailed to a tree. When I look in that mirror, I don't see myself. I see you, watching, listening. The forest doesn't want your soul. It wants your memory, and once it learns your name, it never gives it back. Some places are not cursed. They're hungry. They don't trap people. They invite them. Camp Greenwood will open again. It always does. Maybe next summer. Maybe in 5 years. A new name. A new sign. But the woods will still be there, waiting. You'll see the listing pictures of cabins smiling. Kids a lake so still it looks painted. You'll think we could go there just for the weekend. You won't see the cans in the trees. You won't hear the breathing beneath the dirt. Not at first, but the ground remembers. The trees remember. And the water always reflects the last thing it took. Even now, if you walk far enough into the woods, you might hear someone calling your name. Soft, sad, someone who never came back. Story 2. There's a graveyard hidden behind Cabin 12. They told us Cabin 12 was the best spot on the ridge, a little farther from the noise, a little closer to the forest's heartbeat. None of us knew why. No one ever mentioned what lay just beyond it. My name is Laura. I'm a documentary filmmaker chasing folk legends in the Appalachian backwoods. I came to Silver Ridge Campgrounds for a special project, an exploration of forgotten sites, seasonal shutterings, and what really lingers when people leave. By week 2, rumors started trickling in. A legend that no counselor would admit out loud behind Cabin 12. There's an old family graveyard. No map marks it. No records mention it. But the locals whisper of headstones at midnight, of cold places in the dark, where flowers bloom on graves that should be empty. I thought it was a story, a ghost story for tourist brochures. But I heard laughter behind Cabin 12 that didn't belong to our group. I saw tiny candle lights moving between headstones under the moon. I felt that I wasn't alone. Tonight, I will take you into the tall grass, into the stones, etched with names no one taught me to say, and reveal what is buried there. Because some cemeteries aren't about the dead. They're about the promises that never get laid to rest. The drive up Silver Ridge Road was narrow and winding. The cliffs dropped sharply, the canopy thickened, and mist draped over everything. I chose Cabin 12 for its distance. It's the cornermost unit, with woods pressing close behind it. Pulling in the sun flickered through spruce trees. The air smelled like damp earth and pine resin. I parked, unloaded my equipment, cameras, audio recorders, infrared lights, my notebook. The other campers, mostly families and seasonal staff, waved summer greetings and reminded me that silence was golden after dark. Nobody mentioned the graveyard. Inside Cabin 12, it was small and rustic. 2 twin beds, scratched pine floorboards, a propane heater, a single window overlooking the woods. I plugged in a single lamp and set up the camera tripod level with the window aimed out at the trees. That first evening, I recorded ambient sound insects, night birds, wind rattling branches. I whispered into my mic about my goal to capture the forgotten places of Appalachia. Dawn came. I woke up to a soft tapping on the door. I peeked and found no one, just dew forming on the path. I walked past the other cabins to the shared bathhouse where I overheard an exchange. 2 counselors, older, cautious. The graveyards behind 12 once said, "Stone markers, not camp graves. Something older. Don't wander there," replied the other. "The caretaker asks us to say nothing." My heart jumped. I asked them later. Both denied anything existed. Just a few rocks, harmless old family site. Later that night, I recorded again, extra devices placed outside Cabin 12, including an infrared cam facing the back boundary. I heard footsteps, light brushing against grass, then a faint giggle, a child's laugh, but wrong, hollow, echoing, distant, or maybe too close. I grabbed my camera and flashlight. I crept out the back door, into the night. Cool air wrapped around me. Dew soaked my sneakers. I passed the infrared cam live. LCD glowed grainy white. No movement. And yet I heard whispering. It drifted out of the tall grass, a hushing half-chant, soft syllables I couldn't place. Something about a name. Eleanor. I froze. The lamp I brought swung as my hand shook. I whispered, "Hello." A twig snapped. My breath caught. I clicked a video. For a brief second, the camera showed stone shapes, peaked tops, and flat edges just behind the grass line. I leapt back, turned on the IR floodlight. Nothing. Only waving grass. My pulse pounded. I retreated into cabin 12, bolted the door, and stared at the live feed. The footage showed nothing, just dark shapes. I checked the sound recording. At 10-second mark, a child's voice. "Stay." I shut everything off. Lay awake, flashlight in hand. Between sleep and fear, I heard footsteps at the window. Soft tapping, and someone whispering, "Laura." I didn't sleep. Every sound scraped across my nerves. The rustle of grass. The slow creak of wind pressing against cabin walls. The faint whisper of my name, whether in my head or not, I couldn't tell anymore. At dawn, rain came. A low, steady drizzle that turned the gravel paths slick and the woods darker than usual. I took the opportunity to get answers. There was a small ranger office at the edge of camp, a converted maintenance shed with faded trail maps and a brittle scent of mildew. Inside, I found an old filing cabinet marked Land Records. The top drawer stuck. I forced it open. Deeds, property transfers. One stood out. Addison Benjamin, 1885. The document confirmed that this land once belonged to the Addison family, homesteaders, large family. Tragedy struck in 1892. An epidemic diphtheria. 10 children dead in 3 weeks. A handwritten note from a midwife said mother buried them herself. Stone markers placed at the cedar break. Family asked to be left alone. I flipped faster. A map, not official, hand-drawn. A rough square marked C12 at the corner. And just behind it, a shape drawn in charcoal, A.G. Addison Graveyard. My skin prickled. Footsteps approached. I turned startled. The man who entered looked like he'd grown from the walls. Older, clean denim shirt, rain-worn boots. Eyes like weathered glass. "You're Laura?" he asked. "Yes, I'm Clemens, camp caretaker." I nodded. "You know about the graveyard?" His gaze hardened. "Everyone does, but no one talks." I opened my notebook. "Why not?" He shook his head slowly. "Because they remember. Not just the names carved in stone. The dead here. They were wronged. Buried shallow. Mother said prayers, but the ground wouldn't take 'em right. Said the woods argued back." He stepped closer. "You go looking for them, you'll find more than markers." I paused. "What do they want?" he whispered. "Witnesses." I thanked him, closed my book, and left. His words followed me like fog. Back at cabin 12, the rain lifted. Fog crawled from the trees. I stood at the back window watching the tall grass, and I saw them. Faint shapes. Children, 5 or 6, moving slowly through the mist, barefoot, heads bowed. And in the center, a woman. Long dress, black as ink, veiled down over her face. She turned toward the cabin. Even at that distance, I felt her eyes. I blinked, and they were gone. The grass swayed empty. That night, I sat on my bed, flashlight in hand, camera recording. Just before midnight, I heard it again. The whisper, "Eleanor." Then Laura. I stepped out after midnight. Fog was thick again, low and rolling, like it had crept from the lake to the graves, just for me. My flashlight cut a narrow path through the trees behind cabin 12. Each step I took was swallowed by grass that grew taller than it had any right to. Dew clung to my clothes. The air smelled like cold iron and rotting wood. I reached the spot where I'd seen them, just grass, but then I noticed the pattern. The soil dipped in unnatural ways, sunken ovals spaced evenly aligned like teeth in the earth. I got on my knees, brushed the grass aside. Stone, flat moss-covered, the edge of something buried. I dug with my hands' nails, snapping on compact clay until I uncovered a name carved deep but worn. Eleanor Addison, born 1882, died 1892. She was 10. I backed away. There were more stones, half submerged, some split, some blank. I counted 7 before I stopped. Then I saw the others. Smaller markers, no names, just carved initials and symbols, circles, crosses, a sun with no rays, and one with my initials, LEW. It wasn't a coincidence. I stood heart-pounding. Wind shifted. I wasn't alone. Between 2 trees, maybe 10 feet ahead, I saw her again. The woman in black, still as the stones. Her veil moved gently though the wind had stopped. I raised my camera. It flickered, died. Everything went silent. Then she moved, not walked, shifted. One moment there, next closer. She raised a hand, beckoning. My body moved without consent. One step forward, another, and then I tripped, flat to the ground, cheek against dirt. I blinked. The woman was gone. But something whispered right beside me, "Join us." I scrambled up and ran. Branches lashed my arms. Roots caught my feet. I didn't stop until I hit the cabin door so hard it swung open and slammed into the wall behind me. I bolted it shut. Every lock, every latch. Inside the cabin was cold. My breath steamed. I collapsed into the chair. On the table was my notebook. I hadn't left it open, but now a page I hadn't written was scrawled in red pencil. There are 12. There must always be 12. Beneath it, 12 names. Only 11 were crossed out. I didn't leave the cabin all morning. I sat with the door, locked my back to the wall, staring at that page in the notebook. 12 names. 11 crossed out. I ran my finger over the only one left. Laura E. Whitaker. Me. The fog never lifted that day. It thickened instead, curling against the windows like a living thing. No bird song, no breeze. Even the usual voices of the campground had vanished. I was alone. Or worse, I wasn't. By late afternoon, I tried to leave. I packed my bags, gathered my gear, sprinted to my car, parked beside the trailhead. But the key wouldn't turn. Battery dead. Even stranger, the engine had been cut. Wires hanging loose beneath the dashboard, cleanly snipped. Someone or something wanted me to stay. That night, just after 2 a.m., the knocks started. 3 soft taps on the cabin wall, then on the window, then from underneath the floorboards. I froze. Then came the voice, not a whisper this time. A woman's voice, firm and low like a lullaby, turned inside out. 12 for 12. The soil remembers. The names must rest. I grabbed my flashlight. The notebook fell open again, on the table. The names had changed. Now there were 13, and one was Jess, one was Marco, one was Clemens. The last still untouched mine. But there was a new note beside it tonight. I opened the door. Fog rolled in like a tide. In the distance, across the grass, figures moved between the graves. Children, again, walking in slow spirals around a taller shadow. The woman in black, she was waiting for me. I stepped forward. I walked through the fog as if pulled by a thread tied to my chest. The grave markers swam in and out of view like surfacing bones in a dreaming sea. I heard them, children laughing softly, joylessly. The woman in black stood at the center, her back to me, veil still drawn. Around her 12 headstones, now fully unearthed, newly cleaned. I stepped into the circle breath, fogging flashlight shaking in my hand, and she turned. Her veil lifted. There was no face, just dirt, packed soil where her features should be, eyeless, mouthless, but still, somehow, watching. And from that face came a voice, not hers, mine. You were always the 12th. I dropped to my knees. The names on the headstones rearranged themselves before my eyes, etched deeper, fresh. Jess, Marco, Clemens. The rest names I'd never heard, but now remembered like family. The last stone was blank, waiting. I looked up. The fog grew thicker, pressing down, almost physical. The children stopped laughing. The ground beneath me grew warm. Wet. It pulsed once. Then again, I tried to move, but my limbs were numb. The soil opened like a mouth, and I understood. This was never about death. It was about keeping the memory alive. 12 lives, 12 stories buried in silence, 12 forgotten until someone came too close. The soil didn't want me dead. It wanted me inside, with the rest. I screamed as the earth pulled me down and woke in cabin 12. Breathless, mud streaking my arms, the notebook on my chest, the page clean. No names, just 3 words. Thank you, Laura. Hay never found cabin 12 again. After I left the campground, claimed the structure had rotted, collapsed, disappeared. My footage corrupted, every recording, audio, video, digital, all wiped. Static where there should have been screams. No one at Silver Ridge remembered Jess, or Marco, or Clemens. Only me. But I'm not the same. Sometimes I still feel the damp press of earth around my fingers. Sometimes I wake with dirt in my mouth. And sometimes I hear a voice in the fog whisper, "We remember." There's a reason no one speaks of the graveyard, because it's not marked on maps. It marks you. You don't find it. It finds you. And even now, if you listen closely when the fog drapes low and the pines go still, you might hear your name, spoken from beneath the soil. Story 3. They built the camp over an unmarked cemetery. They said it was just a rumor, old tales passed around late at campfires. Nobody's buried under the cabins. But I learned the hard way. Sometimes rumors are wrong. My name is Owen Harper. I came to Maple Hollow Camp because I thought I needed a fresh start a few weeks away from phones, schedules, city noise. It was supposed to be healing, restorative, until it began to breathe. Cabins laid out in neat rows, a winding lake, kids laughing beneath spruce trees. Everything felt familiar, comforting. But some nights I heard something else. Not footsteps, not voices, more like sighs rising from the ground itself. That's when I met Father Mallory, a local pastor who warned me. He told me the land was consecrated once a long time ago, buried secrets between those planks and logs. Gardeners and foresters had stumbled over uneven ground, but nobody wanted to dig deeper. Behind me were 5 cabins, all built on a hillside that gave onto a meadow. No one said anything when I started asking about bones. But on the 5th night, something dug under my bed, like it needed attention. Tonight, I'll take you into the soil, into the creaking floorboards, into the bones hidden beneath, and why some residents of Maple Hollow can never really leave. The sun was just dipping below the ridge when I rolled in. Gravel crunched beneath tires. Pine shadows stretched like fingers across the cabins. Beneath the idyllic welcome banner, a dozen families checked in, children shifting between excitement and exhaustion. I registered at the rustic lodge, a rickety desk hand-hewn, beams, a stacking of brochures, and introduced myself as staff. I was assigned cabin 5, overlooking the meadow and lake. Perfect. Inside it looked like every summer retreat, twin beds, quilts, mosquito netting, and old wood stove. I unpacked camera gear, audio recorder, notebook. The caretaker, Ms. Vaughn, passed by to show me the ropes, where to find firewood, emergencies, and rules no wandering past the ropes at the tree line check-in by 11 p.m. The first night after dinner and s'mores at the bonfire, I wandered toward cabin 7, a half circle away down a moonlit path. I heard my name, Owen, echoed distant. I froze. Only the wind responded. I shrugged it off. Maybe I spied a path by cabin edge on a map. Someone's prank. I returned to 5, lit the stove, laid on the cot, listened to the chime of wind against shingles. Then beneath my floorboards, soft scraping, like nails drawing along wood, twice. My heart seized. I stood, thought it was mice. I left a camera by the bed, slept fully dressed, a flashlight in hand. Morning camera, dead batteries drained. I felt watched. Measured beams across the smoke, shadows across the quilt. The next day was bright, unsettlingly so. Children screamed with joy by the lake. The air was full of sunscreen and pine needles, and staff handed out popsicles like nothing was wrong. But something was wrong. I couldn't stop thinking about the scraping beneath my bed. That afternoon, I wandered toward the meadow behind cabin 5. I noticed several rusted metal markers sticking up like bones, forgotten survey stakes. They curved in an uneven arc behind cabins 3 through 8. No one mentioned them in the welcome packet. The caretaker, Ms. Vaughn, spotted me kneeling beside one and stiffened. Old boundary lines, she said. For what? She didn't answer. That night, I placed my audio recorder beneath the bed. At exactly 2:14 a.m., I heard it again. Scraping. Slower this time, heavier, as if fingers were dragging through dry soil right beneath the floor. Then, breathing. I held my flashlight like a weapon, walked to the far corner of the cabin, and noticed a single plank loose, raised at the corner. My heart beat so hard, I thought the flashlight might shatter in my hand. I knelt, pried it open. Inside was darkness, and something else. Shards of porcelain, rounded, curved, dusted in soot. A name carved in elegant lettering, now shattered, a Jameson 18. And beside it something small and metallic, a cufflink. Rusted, monogrammed, buried in dust. Suddenly, a whisper, right beside my ear. Owen. I dropped the board and stumbled back, but the voice had come from inside the crawl space. Not behind me, not around me, below. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on the floor staring at the hole. At sunrise, I brought the pieces to Ms. Vaughn. When she saw the porcelain, her face drained of color. She took them without a word, closed her hands around them like they were radioactive. You need to seal that board, she said. Seal it and forget it. What is this place? Her eyes flicked toward the tree line. You don't want to know. I followed her. Is this built over a graveyard? She hesitated, then nodded. Not just any graveyard, she whispered. A place they weren't supposed to bury the bodies. Why? Her voice was nearly inaudible. Because they never died right. She turned and walked away, leaving me alone in the hallway of the lodge, clutching my notebook like a shield. That night, I stayed awake until 3 a.m. The cabin was silent. Until it wasn't. This time, the whisper didn't come from the floor. It came from inside the room. The voice said my name again, but it didn't sound like a whisper anymore. It sounded like a memory. I turned slowly toward the far corner of the cabin. The shadows there were thicker than they should have been. The flashlight beam refused to land. The dark seemed to drink it in like ink pulling through cotton. Then something moved, not a shape, a shift, like the wall itself had breathed. And on that wall, scrawled in something grayish-black, was a name I hadn't noticed before. Owen Jameson. Harper, my full name. I hadn't told anyone here my middle name. Below it, scratched deeper, the ground knows who walks on it. I backed away. In the morning, the name was gone. The wall was clean. Not a mark, not a scratch, but I could still feel it watching. I tried to leave that day, tried to pack, tried to get my car started again. Still dead. I asked a staffer for a jump, a boy named Reed, 17 quiet. He shrugged. Happens a lot near cabin 5. He said it like it was nothing. I asked, why doesn't anyone stay in cabin 6? He stopped smiling. That one's for storage. I walked out to 6 alone. Its windows were boarded, the door chained, but beneath the foundation, the grass didn't grow, only dust, dry, cracked earth, like the ground still hadn't accepted what was buried there. I ran my fingers over the base of the cabin. Symbols carved into the concrete, circles, X's. One looked like a lidded eye. I photographed them. That night I reviewed the images. One photo glitched. The final one of the symbol shaped like an eye was completely black, except for a faint white figure standing in the doorway. Cabin 6 had no doorway. That night I didn't sleep. I walked back to the meadow, and in the moonlight I saw them. Dozens of indentations in the grass, shallow, too small to be real graves, but too symmetrical to be natural. And at the center, a child, no older than 7, facing away, pale. She was humming. I didn't call out, I didn't move, but she turned anyway, and I swear to you she had my face at that age, and she was smiling. Then she opened her mouth and soil poured out. I ran, didn't look back, didn't stop, back through the trees, through the fog now curling low over the ground like fingers pulling at my ankles. When I reached cabin 5, I locked the door, bolted the window, and sat on the floor, shaking. That child wasn't just a vision. She was me, or some echo of me, and she had soil in her mouth like she'd been buried and forgotten, and had finally found a way to speak. The next day I went back to the lodge. Ms. Vaughn wouldn't meet my eyes. I showed her the photograph, the black one, the one with the pale figure in cabin 6's doorway. She stared for a long time, then whispered that was where the original caretaker lived, 1904. He was the one who let them bury here, didn't ask permission, just took the money. After the 3rd death, they hanged him in the barn. She looked down at the photo again, but he never left. That afternoon, a storm rolled in, lightning cracking over the ridge, thunder echoing through the trees like distant drums. The wind knocked down branches. Rain flooded the trails. Campers were sent inside early, but the wind kept speaking like voices buried beneath it. And just before dusk, the lake turned black, like it had remembered something or someone. I returned to cabin 5. Everything inside smelled like soil, wet, raw, and the name, my name, was back on the wall, this time carved deeper. Under it, 12 tally marks, one fresh, one still bleeding. I stepped toward the bed and froze. The floorboard I had pried open was already gone, replaced, nailed down, and etched on its surface in the same gray-black residue was a final message: we're not beneath you anymore. The storm didn't stop. It only deepened. By midnight, the power was out across the camp. The only light came from distant lightning pulses through the fog. The cabins groaned. Trees bent like they were whispering secrets to each other. And then the ground began to move. It wasn't an earthquake. It was breathing, slow, steady, rhythmic, The soil beneath cabin 5 rose and fell, like lungs pulling in rotten air. I grabbed my flashlight, flung the door open. The meadow was alive. Shallow mounds stretched across the grass, heaving as if something beneath was struggling to wake up. I ran toward the lodge, toward any light, but the fog was thick and the rain had turned the earth to sludge. And then I saw them, figures all along the cabins, standing, still, watching. They weren't campers, they weren't staff, they were the buried. Some still wore tattered clothing from the 1800s. Some had no eyes, some had no mouths. All of them had names carved into their skin. One of them stepped forward. It was the girl from the meadow. She smiled. She spoke without moving her lips. "We lived here first." Then she lifted a hand and pointed behind me. I turned. Cabin 5 was burning, not with fire, but with light. A blinding, pulsing light that spilled from every crack in the wood, every seam in the foundation. Screaming poured out. My own voice. I fell to my knees. I knew what it meant. This camp was built on forgotten graves, but they hadn't been forgotten. Not by the soil, not by the storm, not by them, and now they had taken their place back. And me with it. I don't remember how long I've been here. The camp's gone quiet now. No more children, no more songs, just the wind, just the breathing earth. Sometimes I still hear my name whispered in the fog. Sometimes I see flashes of my old self in puddles, in broken windows, in the warped knots of trees. But I'm part of it now, like the others. You can still visit Maple Hollow. The signs are bright. The brochures are fresh. The cabins smell of cedar and lemon oil. But if you stay in cabin 5, and if you wake to scraping under your bed, don't open the floorboards, don't speak your name aloud, and don't ever ask what used to be buried here, because they're not buried anymore. They're walking and they're listening, and even now, if you stand in the meadow and listen closely, you might hear them whisper your name.